I met a kid on my delivery route today. I was driving 45 miles per hour down a busy main road, busy as it can get in the sticks at least, fast enough to hinder my eyesight. Gravel driveways, veiled in overgrowth, revealed themselves as quickly as they vanished, way too thin for a truck built to haul furniture and refrigerators to traverse through. I found the address a little too late, and I got honked at as I slammed the brakes. The driveway only had a few feet of leeway before I would have slammed into their shabby wooden barrier of a gate. An "I don't call 911" sign, rustier than the Titanic, was nailed to a tree. It portrayed a cartoon barrel that aimed right at me in the driver's seat. It's always good practice to observe someone's property before stepping foot on it, especially as a delivery driver. Houses out here can be weird. Most people don't choose to live in isolation. Their bank accounts do. I can't blame someone for wanting to buy a house for a quarter of the price you'd spend in the suburbs. But they're not the weird ones. It's the folks that choose to live out here, the ones that crave a silent, secluded life. But it was a sign on the gate that threw me off guard. Keep gate closed at all times. Usually, the sign is accompanied by a neighboring warning of a dog's presence. That's you. Or my delivery app notifying me of dogs on the property. Yeah, basically just big scary dogs. Not you. But there was none of that. Just keep the gate closed. Be wary of the customer. I nabbed the cardboard box from the shelf in the van. A few pounds of metal clanged around inside. Standing in front of the gate, my van's engine idling behind me. I considered the sign once more. I could see the house from here. It wasn't entirely in shambles. The roof was intact, and so were its walls. A clutter of bikes, plastic children's structures, and cardboard littered the front yard in masses of dunes. A no man's land of toys, likely to remain untouched in the coming months. But the customer requested a garage delivery, roughly a dozen yards away. I'd be in and out in no time. So I opened the gate, lifting its latch and applying a slight push as it creaked open, halting as it casted itself among the shrubbery. I took my first steps onto the property as I passed through the threshold between barreling traffic and a stranger's home. The garage grew closer with each step, but I couldn't get the gate out of my mind. I stopped, looked behind me, still open, still the same as it was. Nothing entering and nothing leaving, except for me. I turned my face to the garage again. Something moved rapidly in the corner of my vision. I think it was the front door. Had it just closed? I hadn't heard anything. I leaned over for a better view of the home's front porch. Nothing suspicious amongst the mountains of empty boxes. Snap out of it. You've got 100 packages to deliver today. Hurry it up. I treaded across the gravel towards the garage. Where a car should be was instead used for storage. Shelves overflowed with pile of dust-coated junk so thick it was as if the garage connected to a dark void instead of a house. 3 steps in, placed the package down, 3 steps out. Not much to it. Except I felt like a jungle explorer, ducking under ripped pool noodles and frayed rope hanging from the top shelf instead of vines and snakes. Hell, there might have been a snake in there. I wouldn't have been able to tell. Except instead of slithering, I heard rapid footsteps, crunching through the dead grass of the front yard. I pivoted away from the garage and faced towards a van. The last thing I needed was a crazed customer who forgot they ordered a package, mistaking me for a burglar. But that's not what I saw. My heart dropped. A little boy, thin and wearing dirt-coated rags that barely functioned as proper clothing, ran straight for the gate. I didn't want to think about what would happen if the kid bolted into the street, but the thoughts forced their way into my head. "Hey!" I yelled at him with my adult voice. He stopped, inches from the gate, turning to face me with an expression of aloofness and determination, as if I had just thrown a wrench in his plan. He cradled his iPad, shattered and falling apart, close to his chest. My heart raced. I considered the worst. What if he runs past the gate out onto the street? What if I get fired for handling someone else's child to prevent them from running? Where the hell are his parents? But the child turned, dumbfounded at my van parked just inches away. I used the opportunity to walk by him and shut the gate. The package was still in my hands. "Go back inside. I don't think your parents want you out here," I tell him as the gate locks. His eyes lock onto mine. His pupils dilated, his breaths rising and falling at the pace of a hummingbird's wings. A shrill cry bellows from the boy as if I had just committed the ultimate betrayal. I panic again. Do I just go? I'm on the clock. But something feels off. This doesn't feel right. God, where the hell are his parents? I get in the van and stare at my work phone. A moment later, I'm on call with dispatch. "Dispatch!" a voice blares through gunk-stuffed phone speakers. "I'm out in the country, a bit away from the station, and I'm delivering to a house," I responded, trying my best to explain whatever the hell was going on. "Yes, and?" "Well, this kid ran out of the house as I was making the delivery, and he looks in rough shape. I thought he was going to sprint right into traffic. I don't see his parents anywhere." My dispatcher takes a moment before responding. "You want to call the police?" "I don't know. This just feels off." "You're in the boonies. Everything is off." It's getting darker out. I could tell he'd prefer if I finished my route and returned to the station without an incident report to file. But this was more important than some desk jockey's feelings or this multi-billion-dollar company. They could afford a few packages returning tonight. I glanced up at the boy through my windshield. He's fiddling with the latch but can't quite figure it out. "Alright, can I at least check if his parents are home?" I ask. "Fine, but keep it off the record if everything's okay." "Good enough for me." I hang up the phone and hop out of the van. The boy backs away from the gate, twitching giddily. "No, you're not leaving, buddy. Just checking in with your mom and dad," I tell him as I open the gate. I block the open space with my wingspan before closing it this time, but he doesn't attempt a grand escape. Instead, stiffly skips towards the front door as I follow close behind. I knock a few times on its splintered white surface. No answer. The boy looks up at me. I get a real good look at his face. Specks of dirt coat his cheeks, very visible in the contrast with his bright eyes and pale face. Mommy's stuck in the mask again. I knock once more, ignoring the ramblings of someone else's child. "Hello? Your kid's out here." Still no answer. But the young boy must have lost his patience because he shoved aside me and opened the unlocked door. I was immediately hit with a waft of something I have never smelt before. Something so pungent, so tangible of a scent. It was like shit and, God, like rotten fruit and spoiled chicken had a gangbang and decided to have aftercare in a tub of fish guts. I don't even think that half describes how putrid the smell was, and this kid was living in it. I recoiled at the scented onslaught. That offensive and decaying smell filled my nostrils. I hadn't even had a proper look inside yet. I was too scared to venture further. But I looked up through the door, and there he was, skipping through like he was in a field of flowers. I had to fight it, block it out, see what was going on. This poor kid. God, the smell. I opened the door wider in a weak attempt to air out the building, tucking my shirt over my nose as I set foot on a mushy carpet. The walls were coated in a yellow wax that tangled with clumps of black mold. Ashtrays stacked like the Leaning Tower of Pisa atop a coffee table. Takeout boxes and unwashed dishware blanketed on the couch. Its color I can't describe as it was hidden beneath the trash, serving as a home for flies and their maggots. The television, sitting upon stacked books and magazines, blared the local news. The only illumination in the house since daylight couldn't penetrate the grime-covered windows. I was in a living room. It took a lot of focus to avoid stepping on the trash as I followed the boy deeper into the house. He waltzed through the landmines of clutter as if it had been there his whole life. The air felt thicker on my face the deeper into the home I went. A flash of light stood from the room ahead. I watched as the boy stood on his tiptoes under the hazy refrigerator light, which revealed the unkept disarray of the kitchen as it swept over piles of dirty dishes and cooked meals left to rot on the countertops. His torso leaned into the fridge as he rummaged around. Plastic containers of lunch meat, now gray with age, clatter on the floor. He took a jar of pickles, wiping used silverware and greasy baking trays off the counter before setting it down and glancing in my direction with a finger in his ear. "Mommy needs dinner." Something was very wrong. "Okay, I'll open it for you, but then I need to call someone." I stumbled over the counter and tossed a package aside. It landed softly on a clump of plastic and paper glued together with who knows what. Grasping the large jar with both hands, I went to work on the lid while keeping an eye on the boy who glanced around agitated. Hopefully this will keep him still. An eerie moan from somewhere in the house. I stop, look around. The boy clenched his jaw. His chest heaved faster. He dove for the package, disappearing behind a vortex of scraps launched into the air. I wanted to react, but the kid set me up. I set the jar back on the counter, but he far surpassed the range of my grip before I could even think about reaching for him. As the newspaper and plastic wrapper settled, the boy turned to the corner and ran down nearby steps with like his life depended on it. I made the mistake of following him. The basement was near pitch black. How that kid managed to climb down those steps without falling baffles me, but I wasn't thinking about that at the time. To be honest, I only had two things in my mind: get the child to safety and ignore that horrible smell. Those issues only worsened with each descending step. Maybe their sewage is backed up. How long has this boy lived here? I don't know if I can stomach this anymore. I need to get him out. What the hell could be down here? Again, that choked moaning, louder this time. As I reached for the final step, a light bulb flickered to life. The boy stood there, box in hand, dangling string connected to a ceiling bulb in the other hand, the little footprints embedded in a thin sheet of gunk from the stairs to the middle of the room. And past him, across the room, through the basement duct and murkiness which devoured what morsels of dim light there was to offer, was a person. At least what I could make out as one from behind. A woman sat in a wooden chair, her head leaned back as if she were asleep. A clear mask with tube running from her mouth lay across her face. A CPAP machine rested on the floor beside her. The source of those restless groans which echoed throughout the home were now amplified by these basement walls. The top of her scalp had lost most of its hair, leaving only clumps of strands that protruded from her shriveling gray skin, and there was something on her face, big and bulky, sleek, like a device. The boy sat on the armrest of her chair and worked at tearing apart the box I had delivered as I took a closer look at the woman, circling her to get a better view of her face. It was a corpse. Had been for a long time. She was wearing a virtual reality headset. From her, a curled groan erupted as air was forced down her throat and it involuntarily expelled from her lungs. Metal clanged in the boy's hands as the cardboard wilted on the floor. Nitrous oxide canisters. He went to work, releasing their contents into the machine that filled his mother's lungs. It's the very thing I delivered to this house. This boy. I sprinted up those stairs as fast as I could, bolted through the kitchen with disregard for dishware that toppled over and spent spores dancing amongst the floor, raced past the well-dressed anchorman on the TV who was selfishly unaware of where his likeness was being broadcasted, and plummeted into the front lawn. I was out of the house, but the smell lingered. It still does. The sun was setting. My phone rang, and I reached into my pocket and sat up, staring back into the living room where the boy now stood, staring back. I held the phone to my ear. "You aren't kidnapped or murdered, right?" Dispatch asked. "No, I'm okay." My mind clouded. I just need to push through. Get on with the job. "Did you fix things up with that boy and his parents?" The TV light flashed upon the boy. His jittery movements were halted. His breathing slowed. It was time to go. "His mom came out and took him," I said. "So you're good to return to your route?" they asked stubbornly. "Yeah, I'm getting back in the band now." "Good. Keep delivering. See you back soon." The boy and I shared a moment of silence once more before I shut the front door and walked back to my van. Keep the gate closed at all times. It burned in my head. I didn't even consider calling the police until now. I don't even remember the address. I just wanted to get out of there. So that is the story. I met a kid on my delivery route today. And for starters, I just want to say all credit goes to the authors of these stories, and I will have everything linked in the description below if you would like to read it for yourself or comment along with the original poster. I sincerely hope that this story is one that this person had just made up and wrote for like entertainment purposes or like to scare somebody, and I really hope this is not a true story, because if it is, I feel so bad for the little boy, and someone needs to go find him. Someone needs to like call the police, get him to that house. But I am curious to know what your guys' thoughts and opinions are on this story. And if you have any paranormal experiences or any strange encounters that happened to you, leave a comment down below because I would love to hear them. My name is Natalie, and I will see you guys next time.